Hello guys, this week I will provide a compilation of the Rick and Morty series that you must watch this week. Let's start from Season 1. On Christmas, Rick sends Morty inside the body of a homeless man to save his life, a parody of Fantastic Voyage. Inside the man's body is a microscopic enclosure called Anatomy Park, a parody of Jurassic Park, which houses various deadly diseases that escape their enclosures. Morty and one of the park staff, Annie, flee from the rampaging diseases as they kill the rest of the base staff. Rick rescues them by enlarging the homeless man's body to the width of the US before destroying it in an explosion. Back at the family home, Jerry's parents visit, and the family attempts to bond without electronic devices. Jerry is dismayed to discover his parents have decided to try polyamory. Episode 4. Aliens hold Rick and Jerry captive in a virtual reality in an attempt to steal Rick's recipe for concentrated dark matter. As Rick attempts escape, he discovers that there are multiple virtual reality layers on top of each other. Jerry, on the other hand, despite numerous system glitches, remains completely oblivious and keeps trying to sell his advertising slogan for apples. Rick finally games the aliens by giving them a fake recipe. The aliens send Rick and Jerry on their way, and their ship explodes as they prepare the concoction. Episode 5. After killing deadly enemies in an alternative dimension, Morty complains that Rick's adventures are too dangerous and traumatizing. This leads them into a Jack and the Beanstalk type adventure, where Morty is in charge. He decides to steal the giant's treasure and give it to the villagers. The giant dies by accident. Rick and Morty are charged with murder, but are ultimately acquitted. Rick and Morty then descend from the giant's beanstalk realm and stop in a fairy tale pub on the way down. There, King Jellybean attempts to rape Morty, but Morty escapes. Rick wins money playing poker and gives it to the villagers. As Rick and Morty are leaving this dimension, Rick kills King Jellybean, having figured out his attempted rape of Morty. Meanwhile, Beth, Summer, and Jerry use Rick's Meeseeks box to spawn Meeseeks, blue creatures that fulfill one request and then explode. Jerry summons one Meeseeks to help him improve his golf game and spends some time training, to no avail. The Meeseeks summons more of them to help, resulting in an increasingly larger crowd of frustrated Meeseeks. They decide to kill Jerry, but given one last chance, he ultimately demonstrates that his skills actually have improved, and the Meeseeks are happy to disappear. Episode 6. Morty is interested in going to the dance at his school with his classmate Jessica, so he asks Rick for a love potion. However, because Jessica has the flu, the potion becomes airborne and goes haywire, causing not only her but the whole population of Earth to fall for Morty, save for blood relatives. Rick attempts to fix up an antidote, but he fails twice, ultimately causing all humans affected by the love potion to turn into mutated monsters called Cronenbergs, a reference to famous director of body horror films David Cronenberg. Meanwhile, Jerry visits Beth in her workplace because he is concerned about her fidelity, and they find Summer later. Rick and Morty then migrate to another dimension where their duplicates died soon after successfully curing all of Earth, thus allowing Rick and Morty to assume their roles. Episode 7. In a pawn shop in space, Rick buys Morty a sex robot. Soon after, the robot conceives Morty's alien hybrid child, whom he names Morty Jr. Rick, and Summer go to the sex robot's planet of origin, Gazorpazorp, to find better suited parents for Morty Jr. After discovering that the Gazorpazorpian females are the dominant gender on the planet, Rick and Summer learn that the males of this species mature in only days and are, by nature, extremely violent. The Gazorpazorpian females arrest Rick due to his open misogyny and threaten to execute both him and Summer until Summer reveals her fashionable top was made by a man, convincing them to let them go free. Meanwhile, Morty Jr.'s quick aging puts pressure on Morty to try and raise him. Fearing his aggressive instincts, Morty keeps Morty Jr. inside by telling him the air outside is poisonous. However, the isolation causes Morty Jr. to become rebellious. When he realizes Morty lied to him about the air, he gets into a fight with Morty until Rick arrives and prepares to kill Morty Jr. Morty steps in the way of Rick's weapon, telling him he still loves Morty. Junior Morty Jr. decides to move out and live on his own while channeling his aggression into a creative art. Episode 8. As the family watches The Bachelor, Rick is dissatisfied with the quality of Earth TV. So he upgrades the cable to show programming from every conceivable dimension. Eventually, they see Jerry on TV as a successful actor in an alternate reality. The family, minus Rick and Morty, uses Rick's goggles to see through the eyes of their duplicates in that alternative reality, where Jerry and Beth have successful lives, they never married, and Summer was never born because Beth had an abortion. Jerry, Beth, and Summer have a heated discussion in which they conclude that family life is holding them back, and Beth admits that Summer was an unwanted pregnancy. Summer feels unloved and plans to run away, but Morty tells her that he and Rick themselves came from an alternate dimension, as depicted in Rick Potion #9, and persuades her to stay. Ultimately, Beth and Jerry discover that their alternate selves are miserable in their own ways and witness them getting back together, which convinces them that they also belong together. Episode 9. Summer works in an antique shop which is run by the devil, which gives away items that come with harmful curses. Rick sets up a competitor shop where he uses science to remove the curses, and the devil is put out of business. Summer helps him to relaunch a successful .com company, but he betrays her and keeps the company for himself. Summer and Rick build muscle mass and publicly beat up the devil to get revenge. Meanwhile, Jerry, helping Morty with his homework, insists that Pluto is a planet. They are abducted by Plutonians to their world, where Jerry is mistaken for a scientist. His statements about Pluto being a planet make him instantly popular, but it is later revealed to him that Pluto is shrinking due to corporate plutonium mining, and the Plutonian leadership keeps the population distracted by assuring them Pluto is still a planet. Jerry tells the Pluto citizens the truth on a public speech, causing him to be hated and deported back to Earth with Morty. Episode 10. The show's original Rick is wrongfully accused of murdering 27 Ricks from alternate dimensions and kidnapping their respective Mortys. The transdimensional Council of Ricks arrests him and finds him guilty, upon discovering incriminating evidence which was actually fabricated to frame him. Rick and Morty escape and are chased by a few duplicates of themselves. The Smith household is flooded with other Ricks, and Jerry develops a friendship with the good-natured doofus Rick. The real culprits seem to be an evil Rick and his evil Morty, who have been using Mortis' low-intelligence brainwaves as a way to conceal themselves. They capture the original Rick and Morty, but the original Morty leads a rebellion of alternate Mortys and releases the original Rick. Rick informs the council about the real killer, thus clearing his own name. After Rick and Morty depart, the council discovers that evil Rick was actually under control by an unknown puppet master, which was evil Morty all along. Evil Morty escapes by blending into the crowd of Mortys without a Rick. Episode 11. Jerry and Beth participate in a reenactment of Titanic, but the ship unexpectedly fails to sink. Jerry spends some time alone with Lucy, a female janitor who eventually proves to be a deranged fan of the movie, forcing him to imitate scenes with her at gunpoint. She almost rapes Jerry, but Beth saves him. Meanwhile, Rick is left in charge of Morty and Summer, but they have a large party. Among the guests are teenagers, aliens, Gearhead, Squanchy, alternate Ricks, and Abradolf Linkler, a DNA combination of Adolf Hitler and Abraham Lincoln. Not only do they make a mess, but the whole house is accidentally sent into another dimension, where Linkler seemingly dies. He actually survives. Ultimately, the guests are sent away, and the house is returned to its place. Rick, Morty, and Summer only have minutes to spare before Beth and Jerry arrive, so they use a contraption to freeze time, allowing them to repair the house. They watch Titanic and unanimously agree on how terrible it is. Episode 1. Continuing from Ricksy business, Rick, Morty, and Summer spend 6 months repairing the house and screwing around with time frozen. After unfreezing it, the trio ends up in a decaying dimension. They split into separate timelines whenever they are uncertain about something. Rick becomes paranoid, thinking that his duplicates want to kill him, but eventually, he calms down. A creature in charge of safeguarding time appears and gives them collars that integrate all the timelines, then attempts to arrest them because Rick stole the time-freezing crystal. Rick, Morty, and Summer show uncertainty on purpose and break the collars, splitting into 64 timelines, and they simultaneously beat up the same creature. Rick then repairs the collars, and they successfully integrate all the timelines. In one timeline, Rick attempts to sacrifice himself and let Morty live by giving him his collar, but ultimately he survives too. Meanwhile, Beth and Jerry hit a deer and bring it to an animal hospital. A hunter claims the deer for his own because he shot it before the accident. Beth is able to save the deer's life and release it. Episode 2. Rick takes Morty on a trip to teach him how to pilot the flying car. When Rick realizes that Jerry has followed them without being noticed in the back seat, he leaves him in a daycare specifically designed for Jerrys from alternate realities. Jerry socializes with other Jerrys, some of them left there indefinitely because their Rick and Morty never returned. Rick sells an antimatter gun to Krombopulos Michael, an alien assassin who intends to use it to eliminate a gaseous being whom Rick nicknames Fart, that is held captive by alien authorities. Rick plans to spend the day at the Blips and Chits video arcade, but Morty decides to stop the assassin. After Rick and Morty release Fart, they are chased by the authorities. Fart uses telepathic powers to kill the authorities, which also leads to civilian casualties. Later, Morty learns that Fart wants to eliminate all carbon-based life forms. Morty then kills Fart using Krombopulos Michael's antimatter gun. Rick and Morty return to pick up their Jerry, but it is left unclear whether they got the right one. Episode 3. Rick attempts to loot a damaged spaceship with Morty and Summer. They find Unity, a hive mind, and Rick's ex-lover. It plans to eventually assimilate the whole universe. Beta 7 is a male hive mind who has a crush on Unity, which it rejects. In a planet completely assimilated by Unity, it and Rick have parties, have sex, and drink and use drugs together. In light of all the revelry, it loses control and the planet is left messy and untended. Summer finds the assimilation unethical, until she and Morty witness some inhabitants regain their identities and start a race war. Eventually, Unity decides to leave Rick for its own good. Meanwhile, Beth and Jerry find a secret underground room with a slug-like monster. The couple has an argument where Jerry makes accusations against Rick, and Beth tries to defend her father. The monster breaks free of its chains and accuses Beth and Jerry of having the worst relationship it has ever seen. An upset Beth confronts a visibly distressed Rick, who attempts suicide in the garage but fails. Episode 4. Alien parasites plant fake memories in the minds of the Smith family and pretend they are friends and family members. Every time the family reminisces about the past, the aliens reproduce. The family can't distinguish real people from aliens, so eventually they can't even trust each other. To prevent further spread, Rick locks down the house. At first, the only alien present is the fake Uncle Steve. They are soon joined by other aliens, including Cousin Nicky, Sleepy Gary, who poses as Beth's husband and Jerry's lover, the family butler Mr. Beauregard, Frankenstein's monster, a talking pencil named Pencilvester, Tinkles the fairy lamb, etc. Mr. Poopy Butthole is an unusual yellow creature who did not appear in any previous episode, but appears to be a longtime friend. Eventually, Morty discovers that the parasites can only create positive memories, allowing the Smith family to confirm one another's existence and kill all the aliens. As they sit down to dinner, Beth shoots Mr. Poopy Butthole, thinking he is a parasite as well, but he turns out to be real. Episode 5. A massive alien head, a Cromulon, appears over Earth, demanding to hear an original song, so Rick and Morty improvise Get Swifty. The whole planet is abducted and forced to participate in a musical talent show, where the losers' planets are obliterated via plasma ray. Morty steals Rick's portal gun and leaves him alone with Ice-T, the only musician to survive an earthquake that struck the Grammy Awards, to make a hit original song and save Earth. Morty stumbles across Bird Person, living with Tammy since Rixie business, who persuades him to go back to Rick. Ice-T is revealed to be an ice alien who does not initially care about Earth, but he later changes his mind and saves the planet. Rick, Morty, and the US president win the competition by improvising Head Bent Over. Meanwhile, Jerry, Beth, and Summer enter a religious cult based on an incorrect interpretation of the message from Cromulons. The movement quickly disbands after realizing it was all a musical talent show. Episode 6. Rick's flying car will not start, so he and Morty investigate the problem. The car's battery contains a miniature universe, and Rick has been threatening their destruction if they do not generate electricity. Inside it, Zeep Zanflorp, that universe's top scientist, created a second miniature universe for the same purpose. Rick, Morty, and Zeep are left stranded in a third miniature universe as the pilot commits suicide and destroys his ship. Rick and Zeep constantly fight, and Morty abandons them and becomes a native chief. Morty forces the two scientists to work together to escape. While escaping, Rick reveals that Morty can turn into a car if needed. Ultimately, Rick and Morty leave the battery, trapping Zeep. Zeep is forced to discontinue his miniature universe research and have his people resume generating electricity to prevent Rick from destroying their universe. Meanwhile, Summer is forced to stay in the flying car, which uses violence to keep Summer safe from strangers while she protests. However, it is effectively pardoned once it prepares a peace treaty, ending the human spider war that has existed in this alternate reality. As a result, ice cream is now served with flies to appeal to spiders. Episode 7. Rick becomes Tiny Rick by transferring his mind to a teenage clone of himself in order to kill a vampire in Morty and Summer's school. Tiny Rick is outgoing and popular, but subconsciously cries for help in song lyrics and drawings. Much to the disdain of her classmates, Summer deliberately gets him expelled by denouncing him as the killer of the vampire coach Feratu, a reference to Nosferatu. Morty and Summer eventually persuade Rick to return to his body. Meanwhile, Jerry and Beth experience couple therapy on an alien planet. Two manifestations of the partners' perceptions of one another are created. Jerry's Beth is embodied as a towering, hostile, xenomorph-like insectoid, and Beth's Jerry is a servile worm. The insectoid Beth goes on a rampage with the help of the worm Jerry, killing several couples and employees. Eventually, Jerry acts in a brave way, causing Beth to envision a strong Jerry, which in turn envisions a goddess-like Beth, who destroys the insectoid monster. Episode 8. Jerry is treated in an alien hospital after unknowingly ingesting some bacteria stored by Rick in a pint of Cherry Garcia. While his family is in the waiting room, watching an assortment of TV channels from alternate realities, Jerry is asked by doctors to donate his penis to be converted into a replacement heart to save the life of civil rights activist Shrimply Pibbles. Jerry complies, but publicly tries to talk his way out of it nonetheless. This causes Jerry to be hated by the public, but also raises awareness as well as money to buy a synthetic heart for Pibbles. Eventually, Jerry changes his mind and holds the doctors hostage, demanding that they go through with the transplant procedure, but security stops him. The family is then sent home, with Beth chastising Jerry that he should not care so much about what strangers think of him. Episode 9. Rick and Morty visit another planet to purchase wiper fluid and witness The Festival, an annual event where the local populace commits crimes for one night without consequence. After initial hesitation, Morty forces Rick to rescue Arthricia, a young alien girl who proceeds to betray them, stealing Rick's gun and spaceship. Rick calls Summer, who transports them advanced armor suits. Morty then goes on a seemingly uncharacteristic killing spree before Rick knocks him out, and he and Arthricia, who desired to stop the festival, storm the castle of the corrupt nobility who introduced it, slaughtering them. The planet's remaining inhabitants decide to create a new society. However, rioting breaks out over disputes, and one suggests keeping the festival after all. Morty feels guilt over his rampage, but Rick, falsely, blames it on the effects of a candy bar he ate, and asserts that his character remains unchanged. Episode 10. Rick and his family attend the wedding of Birdperson and Tammy, whose guest list includes 17 of the Federation's most wanted, including Rick and Birdperson. At the wedding reception, Tammy reveals herself to be a Federation agent and kills Birdperson. Numerous agents invade the building, starting a battle against the guests. Rick gets his family out of the wedding safely, but they are unable to return home, as the Federation would be looking for them there, so Rick takes them to a terraformed asteroid. Rick overhears Jerry proposing to turn Rick in and return to Earth, so Rick allows himself to be arrested. His family returns to Earth, which has joined the Federation and is crowded by alien tourists. Jerry is assigned a job by the Federation. Alright, that's Rick and Morty compilation. If you like video like this, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe this channel.
Wait, Does that mean we get Showtime Extreme?
How about Showtime Extreme Infinite Universes? Look,
This shit is delicious.
a movie. Letterman from a timeline where Jerry's famous.
Wait!
What in the hell?
Cocaine with you too, Johnny Depp!
Ugh, haven't we spent enough time on you?